Welcome back, February 28th, 2020. Alrighty, so we're told our politics is broken. We're told we've never been more divided. We're told things have never been this bad in Washington. All this as the Democrats running for president are blaming Donald Trump now for the coronavirus. You know, he, the one who tried to put pressure on China. He who tried to curb unfettered immigration. He who said globalism was an increasing problem. His fault. He who's called out the tyranny of the Iran regime, where Iran is now evidently responsible for not only lying about the coronavirus to the world, infecting its own cabinet members, but now perhaps infecting the rest of the Middle East as well. Trump's fault. Gail Collins of the New York Times writes, quote, "Let's call it the Trump virus," close quote. Mike Bloomberg says in ads and statements, he got New York City through 9/11. Notice his use of the word through. My memory is Giuliani was mayor at the time, but never mind. He's now saying he knows how to fix the coronavirus problem. So too are all the Democratic candidates as they blame Donald Trump and make fun of him for putting Mike Pence in charge. The audience of The View cheered when they heard Mike Pence could fail in his charge. So even an illness, a virus, gets politicized. You bet politics is broken because it knows no bounds anymore. It has no shame. Meanwhile, this week saw Ilhan Omar tweet out that Donald Trump wants to eliminate, her word, eliminate people of color, even as Donald Trump held another event with African Americans at the White House this week, even as every ad of his touts his efforts to help African and Hispanic Americans, even as he just came back from 110,000 Indians cheering him in their country. Damned straight our politics is broken, without shame. So I'd perhaps suggest something. A magnanimous taking of the narrative back just now from the president. Something like this. See what they say about it on the other side if he were to give this nationally televised speech. My fellow Americans, our politics and political climate is running a bit hot right now. Indeed, one cannot turn on the television or radio or read a newspaper without hearing concerns about our broken politics. We are now working hard to keep healthy our country in the midst of a new virus. Even that has become politicized. That itself is not healthy. To the degree I, as your president, can help reset our tone, I want to talk about this very problem tonight. Other presidents have spoken directly to the American people during moments of great concern. Now, so too shall I. When our polity is unhealthy, that is not a good thing. I do not blame you, the American people. Let me repeat that. I do not blame you. After all, you've been fed a steady diet of hyper-politicized grandstanding, exaggeration, and zero-sum talking points meant to create an atmosphere that anything I do or say is wrong, to be laughed at. At those of you who support my agenda, that they are wrong and to be laughed at. Sometimes we are called racists, tyrants, dictators, and far worse. Too many opinion leaders and political leaders have engaged in this kind of rhetoric. How do you blame a body politic for being unhealthy when the diet it's been fed is itself poisonous? Of course, I am not blameless either. We all wish we could have said things differently from time to time. You find me the person who hasn't stumbled or said something offensive inadvertently, and I'll find you the American who is yet to be born. But let us be honest, and let us try to come to grips with some form or semblance of reality. I began this administration in my very first inaugural by saying exactly this, quote, "We, the citizens of America, are now joined in a great national effort to rebuild our country and to restore its promise for all of our people," close quote. I said, quote, "We are grateful to President Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama for their gracious aid through this transition. They have been magnificent," close quote. Quote, "This moment is your moment. It belongs to you. It belongs to everyone gathered here today and everyone watching all across America. This is your day. This is your celebration. And this, the United States of America, is your country. What truly matters is not which party controls our government, but whether our government is controlled by the people." Close quote. I spoke to all of you, wanting not to include all of you, but to empower all of you. This whole country regardless of party. I went on to say, quote, "A nation exists to serve its citizens. Americans want great schools for their children, safe neighborhoods for their families, and good jobs for themselves. These are the just and reasonable demands of our righteous public. But for too many of our citizens, a difficult reality exists. Mother and children trapped in poverty in our inner cities. Rusted out factories scattered like tombstones across the landscape of our nation. An education system flush with cash, but which leaves our young and beautiful students deprived of knowledge. And the crime and gangs and drugs that have stolen too many lives and robbed our country of so much unrealized potential." Close quote. I never cared about race. I never cared about ethnicity. I went on to say, quote, "We are one nation, and their pain is our pain. Their dreams are our dreams, and their success will be our success. We share one heart, one home, and one glorious destiny. The oath of office I take today is an oath of allegiance to all Americans." Close quote. The next day, celebrities spoke from this Capitol saying things like they wanted to blow up the White House. The Washington Post ran an article saying the impeachment has already begun. And indeed, there were some 300 efforts to try and start impeaching me that commenced within the first year of office. You have the duly nominated head of the opposing party in our 2016 election still saying she actually won the election. You had an investigation into whether I colluded with an enemy regime, a regime I've imposed serious sanctions on to win the election, at once undermining the legitimacy of this office, our elections, and empowering that enemy regime by telling them they were successful. When that investigation proved futile, empty, no collusion, we had the opposing party turn on a dime to impeach me over trying to use that enemy's sworn enemy to affect our future elections. All because I withheld aid to that country for 5.5 weeks. Leaders of that impeachment effort said I threatened our national security for that withholding, even as nearly half of them voted against any aid whatsoever. Meantime, we have congressmen from the opposing party saying I am a dictator who tyrannizes our communities. That's a direct quote. This dictator knows that because he read about it on social media and in our press. You have elected officials, congressmen, saying I want to eliminate people of color. Another direct quote. Put those two things together and you've made me Hitler. Eliminating people of color? How many members of our minority communities have come to the White House to work with me on bettering their schools and economies? How many times have I bragged? Yes, I'll say it, bragged about improving minority economic conditions. I brag about it because I'm proud of it. And now we have members of the opposing party saying that I'm an existential threat to the Constitution, as well as responsible for the outbreak of the coronavirus in America. With respected newspaper editors wanting to change the name to call it the Trump virus. You have national leaders publicly ripping up the State of the Union on national and international TV. You have me, the father and grandfather of Orthodox Jews, being called an anti-Semite. Yes, indeed, our politics is divided and been made toxic. Now, many of you know it's easy to say we've never been more divided. I reject that. Of course we've been more divided. We've been through a civil war, after all. And I think it's fair to say even the election of 1800 might have run hotter than the election of 2016. But after that election was concluded, and Thomas Jefferson was the victor, he said this in his inaugural, quote, "Every difference of opinion is not a difference of principle. We have called by different names brethren of the same principle. We are all Republicans. We are all Federalists. In other words, we are all Americans. We don't wish viruses to spread to punish political opponents. We don't wish administrations responsible for containing and solving health crises to fail so as to punish political opponents. Indeed, even in the hottest of divisiveness, a word that doesn't come close to describing our fracture during the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln said this in his first inaugural, "We are not enemies, but friends. We must not be enemies. Though passions may have strained us, it must not break our bonds of affection." Close quote. Bonds of affection. Where have they gone? I do not hate Democrats. I was one. So was Ronald Reagan. So were many of my predecessors. So are millions of Americans, the same Americans I spoke of in my inaugural when I said we, the citizens of America, are now joined in a great national effort to rebuild our country and to restore its promise for all our people. All of our people. All of our citizens, not Republicans, not conservatives, not Democrats, not liberals. All means all. And America should mean America. Let's take the weekend and go back to what Jefferson and Lincoln taught us. Let's look at those principles we share. Yes, let's let her rip and have our arguments about policy, tax policy, foreign policy, social policy, immigration policy, you name it. But let's do so as having different opinions, not different principles. Let's do it as political opponents, not enemies. One civil war in our history is enough. Do I think we can do this? If I might quote that former Democrat, Ronald Reagan, of course we can. After all, we're Americans. Thank you for your time. Good night and God bless. I think that speech would be a great one, and I'd love to see how the pundits deal with it. I'm Seth Leibsohn. Hi, folks. Thanks for watching my monologue. I'd like to encourage you to visit Guns Etc. They're strong supporters of our president and the principles our country was founded upon. Guns Etc. is 10,200 square feet, and it's a firearm lover's paradise. And for all your online firearm needs, just click on to gunsetc.com. And if you like my monologues, please subscribe to our channel at 960 The Patriot.